feel free to jump in and ask questions, especially because a lot of you may have had a situation come up and you want to clarify things or whatever. That's what Susan's here for, to answer those questions. So I'll introduce Susan, by the way. So Susan Webb. Good morning, Susan.
Good morning.
So Susan I've worked with for a long time because she worked on Renee Ransom's desk for a while while her kids were younger and in high school and whatnot. And she quickly became my go-to person. I came for Susan for any escrow, technical question, even technical questions. And she just became my go-to person. And so I really begged her to take her own desk. So once her kids were grown and off on their own, she said she was ready, which has been awesome. She's already been doing an awesome job. But the great part is Susan has her 30 plus years of escrow knowledge, and she doesn't have a swamped escrow unit. So, which is kind of rare right now. So it's kind of like, you know, ground floor level of getting in with an A agent. So just FYI. So first of all, I've got some people online with us today. I introduced Susan. Steve Amenta, we don't know if he's going to show or not. He's having a crazy closing morning. But I just wanted to make sure that you met him. So we might be dragging him in here in a moment. But we also have Joseph too. Joe? Wave your hand.
Everybody.
So Joe is here with us, and Joe was our customer service and data manager, and he's our IT guy internally, by the way. And we dragged him out in the field, and so he is now also doing sales along with me and Scott Rodriguez, who is also there. Scott, good morning. Good morning. And up in San Ynez today, we've got Donna Matsumura, who is part of our team as well. And she spends most of her time up in San Ynez and Solvang area. So with your agents up there. So anyway, so just to get the process started, I'm going to be sharing a few different screens with you. What we're going to do first is basically just go through the process. So again, feel free to stop us, ask any questions that you might have. So first of all, we're going to start with the basics. So you're out there working, you're looking at some properties, you're working with the buyer and seller, and they might even drive by a house and say, hey, Candace, we went by this house and we want to know what's going on with it. Can you give us some more information? Or you've actually narrowed down a property that you want to buy or that you're listing, and you need a property profile. In a property profile, I'm going to jump over right here. This is all hiding right here. This is a basic property profile. Joe, do you want to tell us what the difference is between a property profile and a prelim, what's in it, and online services versus what you get for people?
Right. So what you're seeing right now is a property profile pulled up online from one of our system called SB Realtor Tools. As you can see there, you'll see, you know, the specs of, you know, the ownership, address of the property. And then if you keep scrolling, you will be able to see some specs of the property, ownership information, APN, property characteristics, and comparables if there are any, right? So a basic property profile would entail, you know, the legal investing, you know, and any open deeds of trust. Anytime, if you stop right there, on these online property profiles, anytime you see a hyperlink next to a document with the instrument number, with our online system, you're able to click on that hyperlink and populate the actual recorded or a copy of the actual recorded document. So if you can't get a hold of me, and what I mean by getting a hold of me, if you are going into a listing appointment, it is pretty important to actually, you know, give me a call, shoot me an email, or text me saying, hey, you're going into a listing appointment. You want a profile from me. And what I do is I will actually go into my searching system, actually our title plant system, and do a little mini search for you. And I'll actually tell you which deeds of trust are open and which ones are not. And, you know, I will, you know, get you the correct vesting. A lot of times the online system is great for what they are. It's just data entry from the people. And, you know, sometimes they won't list out all of the releases. But in this case, you know, our new systems, they have, you know, updated with the release date of mortgages. But that sometimes gets confusing. So you kind of want to know, you know, how many, you know, open deeds of trust there are or whatnot, right? So my profile that I issue to you would have the same comparables if there are any and stuff like that. Except I go, I take a little bit further and I'll do a sort of a mini search for you. And if I see any type of like any liens, personal liens that kind of stand out for you, right, on these properties. Um, the difference between a profile and a prelim basically is that a prelim, you get a full search, and what they'll do is they'll search out easements and exceptions on there, and they'll also do a name run to see if there are any federal tax liens, state tax liens, and all that stuff like that, just to really make sure when you do go into escrow that there aren't anything funky going on with your deal for your clients. So you get the full-fledged, the full search, and it goes through, a couple pairs of eyes. It goes through the searcher's eyes, the examiners, along with the title officers before it goes into closing. So that's a basic, difference between a profile and a prelim.
Great. Thank you for that, Joseph.
No problem.
So the next thing we're going to go over, we're going to jump into the preliminary report. And Susan, you could probably go through this as well as Steve could, but I've got the listing prelim. Click on over. There we go.
Okay.
Okay. Can you guys see that? Okay. So basically, I'm going to start off here. I'm going to ask you some questions.
Okay.
So basically, what we wanted to encourage you to do is ask questions. So what you're going to get, and by the way, when you order a listing prelim, you are going to start with your escrow officer. So so when you have a listing coming up, or when you just got a listing, preferably when you've just gotten a listing, and you need to get a preliminary report issued on that property, and we really encourage you to get those ahead of time, because there might be some information that you need to know. You need to check back with Susan or your title officer, Steve, and get some things clarified. So when you're standing at that open house, like we will be doing again someday, or doing a Zoom presentation, you can go over all the documents and you can be in the know of what's going on with that property. So that's what the preliminary report is for. Some people post it to their listing, so they have all the documents there along with your pest inspections and all that fun stuff. So that's what you can do. And just so you know, when you get this listing prelim, the contact information is right here. So your escrow officer's information will be right here with the order number. And so when this turns into a sale, that order number will stay the same. The other thing is your title officer's contact. So Steve's contact will be right here along with that order number again. And if you want to contact Steve to go over this, just shoot him an email and say, hey, Steve, can we go over this at 2 o'clock today, and just set a time so that he can get the prelim in front of him and you can go through any questions that you might have. So Susan, I'll just move through here and just tell us what we're looking at here.
Sure. So basically, so when you go out before you go out to a listing appointment, it's great to have this because we've already searched the property, so we have the correct property address, and it lists your owners. So item number 2, that would be your owners of record. So that way, when you're going out to the listing prelim, in this instance, they're trustees of a trust. So let's say your listing appointment is with maybe their son or a successor trustee, then you know that maybe these people have passed and you're dealing with a family member who is a successor trustee of the trust. So that's kind of important to know. So when you go out, you know what kind of documentation you're looking at for your current seller. And then we always have the legal description. And then the next section of the prelim gets into what items or exceptions are on the prelim.
Can you tell us what an exception is?
Yes, they are items that either stay with the property or easements. Property taxes are always listed as the first and second items. And then there's any easements that run with the property. Those always stay. Those are exceptions that stay. CC&Rs is the next item. More easements. Sorry, I'm going to put my glasses on. And then item number 9 is a deed of trust. So that means that your seller has a loan against the property. And so that's one of the items that we will take care of through the closing of the escrow. So we'll remove that so we can give clear title to the new buyers.
I just wanted to ask you a question.
Yes.
So on this particular prelim, this is a very simple, straightforward prelim. we've put here for the purposes of teaching. But what are some red flags do you think that some people, that agents might want to be concerned with in their prelim?
Well, on this prelim, what happens is when I get a copy of the prelim, I always go through it. And then I send it off to you as the agent, and I tell you what I see on this prelim. And on this one, there's 2 loans, and one of the item number 10 is a line of credit. So these are particularly important because this means that it's an open deed of trust. So let's say your seller, and this is situation, a lot of times this happens, they say, oh no, I only have 1 loan. Because sometimes people view these because there's a 0 balance. But we have to take care of these equity lines at closing because we have to get them closed out. And a lot of people don't understand that because they think they have a 0 balance, that it's not attached to their property. So these are kind of little tricky HELOCs. But we take care of those and we close them out for during the transaction as well.
Jumping back to easements, Susan.
Yes.
What are some easements that, because I know in some cases that we plot the easements with the prelim. Do you recommend that?
Well, I think on lot and tracts, they usually don't, but we can plot any easements that you'd like. Maybe Joe can talk about that a little bit better, but I know usually on just the lot and tracts, they're not needed. But in situations where there's like a road that needs to be identified or shared driveways or things like that, then you'd want your easements plotted.
Okay. Sounds good. So, so easements might be something that that a buyer or seller might want to talk to their title officer about.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, we have that happen. Does anybody have any questions on preliminary reports?
There's a couple of questions in the chat.
Okay.
So,
Joe, go ahead.
Okay, so Russia Robbins asked, how do you politely ask for ID?
Oh. Well, I think it's important that you can go over this prelim with them and say, oh, how are you related to the parties that are on title, basically. That would probably be the way I would address it, because it looks like this property is held in a trust. Is it your family's trust or something like that, that kind of gets the conversation going as to how if your listing appointment person is different from who holds title. Kind of just say, oh, how are you related to the parties on title, is the way I would probably address it.
What's next, Joe?
Michelle King said or asked, is there any way to know current amount of the deed or deed of trust? Sometimes they're old and may not accurately reflect it.
That is a very good question, because the amount that's on the prelim is the principal balance at the time they took out the loan. So that would be probably, if you're going over a closing statement with your client, you probably want to ask them to have their most current mortgage statement available. So that way, if you ask, you can also ask me before you're going out to your listing for an estimated closing statement. And so that way, if you have a mortgage statement from your client, I can get that on the estimate, so they kind of have an idea of how much their proceeds are going to be. So yeah, I would probably ask them, ask for them to look at their current mortgage statement and get a principal balance.
And I'll just jump in here, and we can go over this in another class, perhaps, Leanne, but we've got some great programs, which is Fidelity Agent, and a lot of you already use it. But if you use Fidelity Agent, you can plug in the current mortgage, and then it has a little gear in the box for total amount due, and you can click in the month that person took out that mortgage, and what they're speculating they would owe at this point in time. So that is a great app for creating sellers' net sheets and buyers' estimated cost sheets. So just so you know, that's there, that you can do a little worksheet to figure out what the estimate is of what's owed. Did we answer all the questions, Joseph?
Yes, for now.
Okay, good. All right, so we will keep going. Okay, so Susan.
Yes.
We've got the preliminary title report.
Yes.
We're a listing agent. We're ready to go, and we've got an offer. Oh wait, hold on one second. Breaking news, Stephen Mentes just walked in the door. So Steve, we actually just went over the prelim. I'm gonna let you.
He just wants
No,
to say hi.
go ahead.
Hi.
But anyway, so is there anything that you wanted to comment to new agents about the prelim? About
Oh, hi guys. Nice to meet you. Did you covered most of the things?
Yes, I think so. One item that might be helpful is when they think they need to have the easements plotted versus it's not necessary.
Oh, on complicated transactions where you have in the legal description where you would have access easements, you probably would want to get them plotted. We just want to make sure we know where they are. Sometimes they get missed. Sometimes they're not where we think. You can always ask. You can ask us to plot them anytime you want. We're happy to do them. I think it's usually a good idea. If it's just a standard subdivision or a condo, we probably won't bother with it.
Right.
Quick question: is
Yeah.
there a situation where an
Can they see
easement?
me now? Where am
They
I?
can. They can
Oh, I
up in the
can't
upper
see
right
me.
corner.
Oh, hi.
Is there a situation where an easement has caused a problem in a transaction that you're aware of? Can you tell us about?
Yeah, sometimes there'll be shared driveway easements. Some old properties down in Santa Barbara, there's some where you'll have a garage that straddles a property line. That you may not see that too, but that does happen. And there may be an unrecorded access easement. So it's usually a good idea if you have any questions at all. Or we usually will pick up on it ahead of time, by the way. But if you have any questions at all, we would want to have them plotted and just kind of verify. But easements can cause problems where you would have that maybe some parts of Montecito or ranch lands where there's multiple parcels created for access over multiple neighbors. Those are ones we want to kind of run through. I don't know, it really depends on the location. If you're doing more simple transactions, not necessarily cheaper ones, but simple ones in Montecito where you're abutting a major road, then that may not pose a problem. But I guess the main thing we'd say is we're here to watch for those things. And by the time you get the report, well, Susan would have made sure I reviewed it. I'll tell you that right now.
There you go. Joe, are there any questions that people have had on the prelims that you've been sitting here? No?
Can I just throw in there, Jennifer, for our
Yes.
new agents, what does he mean by have them plotted?
Oh,
Sure, no, good question. Well, we have an engineer here, a couple, who will take the easement as it's mentioned in writing and then make a map out of it. So we would see where they are on a map.
Thank
And
you.
You're welcome.
It'll actually be pretty color-coded little lines and a key and all that fun stuff.
do we have a map?
Thank you, Leanne. The next time we do this class, we're going to put some color-coded easements. But actually, to tell you, the other thing we wanted to do, though, is offer in the future, we would like to do another title class where we get into just a little more detail about title and some plotted easements and pull up a little bit more complicated preliminary report and go in depth on that. So just for the purposes of getting through everything in an hour, we did it this way, but that's a really good question. That's what a plotted easement is.
Is there a map on this one?
There isn't a map
Okay.
on this one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, okay.
right.
Okay, Steve,
Thank you.
for
Sorry it
taking
was
time.
so quick. I hope that was helpful, folks, but we can do it, however you want to do it longer. I'd be happy to do it.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay.
Thank
Nice
you.
to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Steve.
Thanks, Steve. Get back to work.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
So anyway, so now jumping back, so now that we've got a listing and we just got an offer, can you go through the RPA with us? And I'm going to put the RPA up
Yes.
here. Can everybody see that okay? Okay. Okay, Susan, what's important to remember about the RPA, or what parts are important?
So basically, I go through the purchase agreement and I make sure everything is signed and initialed on all the appropriate pages. The items that I've highlighted in yellow that Jennifer can just kind of go through, those are the items that I am interested in. So that's what I extract from your purchase agreement to draw my escrow instructions. And that's what I will be monitoring throughout the course of the escrow. So basically, the one thing I did want to point out is on this purchase contract, there is a seller counteroffer.
Okay.
And so I check to see how many counteroffers and make sure they're in the right order, so we have the right purchase, the right amounts, and all of that information is correct. And on this particular, what I wanted to point out on the counteroffer is, if you, on item B, if you read that section, if you change the purchase price from the original purchase agreement and it changes in the counteroffer, if you don't amend the initial deposit, it won't change. So let's say your purchase price goes up $100,000 or whatever, and then your buyer is bringing in that original amount. So as an agent, many agents will counter that the initial deposit needs to be higher. So I just wanted to point that out on that page.
The next part.
The next part is I go through page 2 and I look at your contingency dates. So the appraisal, the loan contingency, and the go through if there's any reports. Go down a little bit there. So if you've marked that there's any reports that I need to be looking out for throughout the course of the escrow, I make sure that item C on the next page is filled out as to who's handling the escrow. Hopefully me, and it's correct. So just items C, D are just all items that I'm looking for, that they're all checked properly. And if I see something and I go through, I'll always email both agents and say, you know, this looks odd to me, or did you mean to, you know, just kind of so we can clarify things. So if anything looks out of ordinary. The other item I wanted to mention is when I'm looking at the purchase contract and you're looking at days, the acceptance date is the only date that can land on a weekend or a holiday. All other contingency releases, close of escrow, they all have to land on a calendar day, which is Monday through Friday. So a lot of times if your closing date lands on a Saturday or Sunday, I'll change it to the following Monday, the first business day. Sorry, I meant to say business days, not calendar days. And then I'll say, oh, your close of escrow, your acceptance date was this, and your close of escrow date landed on a Sunday. Do you want to move it to Monday, or you want to move it to the Friday before? So we kind of get that conversation, because most buyers do not want to fund on a Friday and close on a Monday, because then they're paying interest over the weekend. Any questions?
Okay.
So that's what I do. I just go through the contract and I draw my escrow instructions and I send it out as a draft. And at that point, actually before I draw my escrow instructions, I'll contact both of the agents and I'll get contact information, because it's really important at this point to start communicating with both the buyer and the seller, especially the buyer, because if we, the initial deposit can either be sent by wire or a personal check. So I kind of find out from the beginning. Hold on.
So I just want to make that clear. So the very first thing that you need, Susan,
is contact
information. And then the other thing, which we didn't do in the past, but I'm going to jump over here, that we cannot stress enough, especially in our crazy market right now, is wire safety information.
Right.
So we put a little thing on the front of our buyer's package about wire safety, but can you tell us what you do to make sure that the buyers and the sellers' funds stay safe?
Absolutely. So that's why contact information for the buyers and the sellers are very important from the very beginning, because I will reach out to your buyer, not you, because we try and not give you that information. Well, we don't give you that information as brokers, our wire instructions, because we keep them very secure. We send them only to the buyer and we send them encrypted. So if your buyer wants to wire funds, they have to go through a couple of extra steps and they have to get an access code that I've given to them verbally. And that's how they access our wire instructions. So it's very, very secure. And that way you're not involved and have that opportunity maybe to get wire instructions into the wrong hands. The other item that I tell the buyers is that when I do send my wire instructions to them, I will never change my wire instructions. You will never get an email from me saying that, oh, my wire instructions have changed. Can you send it here? So that's just kind of one of the items that's in my wire fraud alert. And it's a great document for the buyer to actually read. So it's important that they look through that. And I kind of just, here it is here. I kind of give that all information in a nutshell to them. And it's a really important document with all the fraud that goes on now.
So just to reiterate, I sit around all of the escrow officers and around them and hear them say, and sometimes a client will call in, your customers will call in with some information or changing something, banking information. And I'll hear the escrow officer all the time say, I know this sounds silly, but I have to hang up and call you back on the trusted number that your realtor gave me for you. So it happens all the time. We take this really seriously.
Right.
And the other thing, Leanne, which I really want to make sure that newer agents are aware of, and that is, I know that you're excited to post that your listing just sold, but if you can, don't do that until it closes. Wait until the close of escrow, because it kind of creeps some people out. But just so you know, wire fraud is one of the biggest ways that people are making money right now. And people have most likely infiltrated a number of realtors' accounts because they sent you a faulty link or whatnot. They sent you something that said, hey, renew your account on with the California Association of Realtors, and you clicked on a link and gave them some information. You guys go through hundreds of emails. So the chances are you've been compromised. And what a hacker does is wait until an escrow happens. They wait to see you say, hey, we just opened escrow, or hey, we just got a contract on 1415 Chapala Street. So please, if you can, wait until your transaction closes before you post a congratulatory or picture with you and your clients or all that fun stuff. So anyway, sorry, Susan, for the interruption.
That's okay.
But
So
back to our buyer's package.
So that's for the initial deposit. And what I like to mention too up front is a conversation that you might have with your buyer, if you're the selling agent at this point, about their closing funds. It's kind of good to, especially if we have a really quick escrow. So you want to make sure if there's a lender involved, that they've talked to the lender about what where their funds are coming from. And one important item, if they have it in some sort of a brokerage that they have, usually it takes 5 to 7 days for them to get that out of their Charles Schwab or whatever and into their regular bank account that the lender has sourced the funds from. So it's kind of good just to have a conversation with your buyer saying, you know, your initial deposit can either be wired, it can even be a personal check if we have enough time for it to clear. And by the way, where are your closing funds coming from? Just to have a conversation, just to get that kind of moving along.
Quick question.
Sure.
So my understanding is one of the first things that you get when you open an escrow is illegal investing. Why is illegal investing important? And what does that mean? What's illegal investing?
So what illegal investing, if you have not received a listing prelim where we already know who the owner is, let's say I have an escrow, we don't have a listing prelim. I will ask my title for illegal investing, and that gives me the last document, grant deed or quitclaim deed, that was recorded that tells me who the current owner is.
And how they hold title.
And how they hold title.
Mm-hmm.
And that you make sure the property address is correct. So that's why if you don't have a listing prelim, we're still okay and it's great, but if you're the listing agent, that listing prelim really helps you out and gets things moving.
Have you ever heard of a situation where the legal investing didn't match up with the real estate purchase agreement?
Yes. So then we just have to figure out what the problem was, if we have the correct property address. Sometimes parcel numbers get, properties get split. I mean, so that's all things that title and escrow will help you understand and figure out. So, because right now you're just going out and you have your, you have your purchase agreement. That's what we check. When you give me your purchase contract, I go through it and I make sure everything matches up with title and escrow. So yeah, that's kind of our responsibility to help you move through the escrow.
Yeah, because you could have a seller's agreement with Bob and Nancy Wilson on it, and actually Bob got a loan from his brother Joe a really long time ago, and Joe might still be on title, and we've got to go get Joe's signature. So
yeah,
things happen.
Things like that, and that's what we, as soon as we get that prelim, those are the kind of items that we work through for you to make sure the right people are signing your contract and our escrow instructions.
So let's get back to the buyer. What else is in this buyer's package? What does the buyer expect during the course of a transaction?
So the buyer's package, so once we've, I do a draft of the escrow instructions, and both agents have approve the dates, they're all correct, and everybody's on the same page with the close of escrow and the contingency releases, I create packages for the buyer and the seller. And the buyer's package, I've already probably sent out my wire fraud alert because I send that out separately because it's encrypted. And then I do a buyer package. So I do, this document is the preliminary change of ownership. That's the document. It looks kind of scary to most buyers, but sometimes we do that with loan documents. I'll have them, but a lot of times I'll just put it out there and see how they can fill it out. And when it comes back to me, then I'll go over it when they have loan documents in hand and we're going over things. The next item is a buyer information sheet. And this is really important because this gives me all of their current information and it goes over how they would like to hold title to the property. And this is something that, so item number 2, let's see, 3, is how their names are held. So a lot of times people will ask, oh, so this is a really nice handout that we have for people because we can't really, we can't give advice on how they should hold title. We can only give them information that they can either take to their accountant or lawyer. These are just the common ways that, like husband and wife is community property with right of survivorship. And it just tells you how certain people, a husband and wife, can hold title, how multiple parties can hold title. So it's a really nice handout.
Great.
And but we always recommend if they have any questions, they should go to their either accountant or attorney.
You know what? I will jump in here just to remind people that we do, and normally when we do a in-person class, we give you this folder, and what's in this folder, I know it's hard to see because we're so far away, but this is a folder that basically allows your client to keep all their documents organized. But I'm pulling this out because what's in here and what you can get anytime is collateral for your client or for you to keep. So this is a Fidelity National Title buyer and seller guide. And what this does, it has just the information of the process of buyer and seller. It has a life of an escrow page in here. And it also has the page that Susan was just referring to for ways of holding title. So that's also in this booklet. So we will be sure that we send out a bunch of these booklets to your office, Leanne, so you have them. But they're a great thing for you to keep to refer back to that goes through our escrow process.
Maybe you can drop some off at both offices, seeing as you guys visit there all the time, and we'll just have them up the front.
Perfect, perfect. Anyway, okay, Susan, I'm jumping back to your here.
Okay. So, and I am always available for your clients. Don't think that you need to go through these documents because they're escrow documents. So just refer them to me and I'm happy to go over their whole package with them if they need, and just help them, guide them through how to complete, you know, just what to complete. And also there is an important buyer information sheet. It kind of just goes over many items that are throughout the process of escrow. And so that's just kind of a nice document for them to read. And those are the forms that I send out for your buyer's package.
Okay. Are we moving on to the seller's package?
Sure.
Okay.
Jennifer, I'm getting a question coming through about, do you have all of that in digital form that you could, that package that could just be emailed?
Mm-hmm. So a lot of times in the very beginning, that communication, I will ask your buyer and seller if sometimes agents want the package to go through them and they will help their buyer or seller go through that package. I can DocuSign, email, whatever your client feels most comfortable completing the documents, we can do that. So it's all of these forms are on our DocuSign, so they're really user friendly because they're just fill-ins for them. So it's really helpful. But if some people want paper copies, I can mail them to them. However, that's kind of the communication that I start in the very beginning. You know, how would you like to receive your escrow paperwork? And so, yeah, that's
I think what we were referring to was the package that Jennifer held up for agents. Is that something you have digitally?
Oh,
Sure
sorry.
Yeah. Yes, I sure do. I can send you a PDF of that. It's such a big attachment. I have to put it in a zip file, so I'll send it over with a zip file.
Okay, if Jennifer will send that to me, and anybody who's on the call who wants it, just shoot me an email.
I sure will. I sure will.
Thanks. Thank you,
And
Jennifer.
sure. And Susan, a great time to ask the question of what documents in escrow can be docu-signed? I know you said it's a preference for the client, but what about lender documents?
No, lender documents, but not quite sure about their disclosures. I think a lot of their initial disclosures on the lending side, they can be docu-signed. All of anything that needs to be notarized and recorded cannot be docu-signed. So we'll start with that. So the lender package, a lot of their disclosures, the opening disclosures, the initial loan app, things like that can be docu-signed. But anything that has to be notarized, where the county needs an original, cannot be docu-signed. So the whole loan document package that we get, once we're to that point, we sit down with the client and get that signed.
Okay.
And
jumping back, one more question for the buyers.
yes.
Because I forgot to go over this, but what are you doing with the buyer and the loan process? Once they submit their loan package or they're pre-approved, the next step is just the loan documents?
Well, the next step is the lender requesting documents from us, like a copy of the preliminary title report, our escrow instructions, the buyer's vesting. So that's why it's very important to get these initial, I call it the opening packages, back from your clients and back into my hand. So that way, when I move forward with the lender, I'll have everything for them. Because one of the things they will ask for is how the buyers are going to hold title. So they'll need the vesting right away, because they want to make sure all of their documents are correct. So they base the information off of those forms that your clients are giving us to pass on to them. So, and any questions?
Great. Any questions?
So basically, once this is the seller's package, it's similar. There's a lot more forms for the seller, but it's the opening information sheet, which this is important because this tells me, I get this from them to tell me how many loans they think are on the property. So this is a kind of an important form, because let's say they think they only, going back to that deed of trust that was a line of credit, a lot of lenders won't list, sellers won't list that because they don't see that as something that was recorded against their property. So this is a good form for everyone, just to make sure we're all on the same page. The next document, and these are all documents that I can go over with your seller, just have them call me. The 1099-S, this is for reporting the sale. Then we have the FERPTA on the next page, and we have two sellers on this one. And the prelim approval, I always send this to the seller, just so, and I send them a copy of the prelim so they know what items are on their preliminary title report for this property. The 593, and we can go over these. I know these are probably all maybe new to you or not, but this document's important because it's the real estate withholding. If it was your client's principal residence 2 out of the last 5 years, they are exempt from withholding to the Franchise Tax Board. So when you get into properties where they don't have any exemptions, then they'll have to pay the Franchise Tax Board unless they can complete this form. Either they have a loss or a zero gain. There's a lot of different items, and I can go over this form with them, or we can go over to a future meeting. But it's pretty intimidating because in 2020 they combined 3 forms into 1 form. So it's just a simple form to go through. But the general rule that I tell sellers: was it your principal residence 2 out of the last 5 years? You can mark the first box, sign the last page, and move on. If it's investment property, then they could possibly be doing an exchange, and there's a section for them to mark that they're doing an exchange. And I'm happy to go over all that with your seller. And then the last item in their packet is the seller information sheet, and it's kind of the same as the buyers. It just kind of talks about how deposits, real estate taxes are dealt with, and funds in escrow. So it's just kind of a little information sheet for the buyer and seller.
Sounds good. So Susan, I guess my question is, what would you want to share with agents? What should they be doing during the escrow process? How can they be proactive and help you?
I think the best thing is getting the opening packages back to your escrow officer, so we have the information that we need to get to the parties that are asking items from us, like the lenders. And then an important thing that I wanted to share is during the course of the contingency period, if you have negotiated any credits, any reduction in the purchase price, please get that information over to your escrow officer as soon as possible, because the lenders, if anything changes from that initial real estate contract, the lenders would like to know, because it affects their loan amount or their ratios or things like that. So it's really important that you get any kind of information regarding credits or purchase price reductions.
Or close of escrow date?
Close of escrow date. So there's no surprises when I have your buyer in front of me and we're signing loan documents. And they say, where's that credit? Or so that can cause a big delay or problems. So as soon as, and another item is, we're not allowed to ask for contingency releases anymore at this point. So if you want to let me know, what I do is I send out an email when I know the contingencies are due, and I'll say, how's everything going? Can I proceed with the closing as is? And kind of that'll get maybe a conversation saying, oh no, we adjusted the purchase price or something like that. Because what happens is at this point, I have all my paperwork in, the lender's working on their loan docs, and then I need to deal with the seller and getting the grant deed signed. And so let's say your seller is out of state. I have to hire a mobile notary. And so I don't like to do that and incur charges until I know the buyer has signed his releases and we're moving forward. So I kind of send out an email, just, is everything okay? Should I move forward with getting my grant deed signed? And that kind of an email. That way it'll prompt somebody to say, oh no, we have this or that, and that way it opens up a conversation as to any changes.
Sounds good. Any questions so far? I wanted to make sure I put this, who pays for what, in here.
Russia asked the question, is this a form handled by you at Escrow or that we give our clients? It was the last forms you were talking about.
Oh, no, that's the seller's package. That's forms that I send out. So those were all escrow paperwork for the buyer and the seller packages that I send out. And that way, if they have any questions, you can direct them once they get it. If they call you, just have them call me direct and ask whatever questions they have to complete them.
And I'm going to put one more document while Susan tells us how you prepare for the close, which I know you kind of went through that. How do the agents prepare for the close?
Well, I think as we've been going through, just to make sure that your clients have returned their paperwork, you communicate with your escrow officer if there's been any changes to the initial terms of the contract. That's really it. I think just, and I kind of just move things along by getting, escrow's a third party, but we also we generate all the paperwork for the clients as needed. So there's probably forms that you need, your broker needs. A lot of the seller's forms, we redact or we take off their personal information because you need that FERPTA or a copy of the 1099 or different things for your broker files. And so we just kind of, as we go through, if there's anything for your file that you need so you can get paid, you just ask me for that and I'll get you items that you need for your broker file. That's kind of, and we just kind of move through the escrow that way.
And what's the recording process these days? I hear that we've started a new thing called e-recordings. Can you tell us how that works?
It's actually really, it was difficult to get started, but now it's really nice. So we're at the point now where, let's say I have my grant deed back from your seller's here in town. I have all information I need. The loan documents are all signed and I have that deed of trust. So we create a recording package, and it's all the documents that need to transfer the title from the seller to the buyer. And that also records the deed of trust to let everyone know that there's a deed of trust on the property. So we get those documents in order and we get them over to our title officer who examines them. And that's all done the day before. So really after we've signed loan documents, it moves very quickly then. And so usually the loan documents are signed, I would hope, a week before, but sometimes we don't get that luxury of time. And so then we have to just move forward to get that loan funded. So at the same time we're getting the loan funded, we're packaging the documents back to the lender, and we're getting documents to title that need to be recorded to record the transaction with the county recorder. And as Jennifer said, now we're moving to e-recordings. So we just take the whole package and they upload them to a company, and that company gets them to the county recorder to record the day of closing. And so we typically get confirmation between 10 and 11. And what confirmation means is that it's recorded and the transaction is complete. We've changed the ownership from your seller to the buyer, and we close the escrow. And at that point, we just close everything out. We balance the file, and we pay everyone.
And because our county recorder is so generous, they do give us the options for special recordings on a Friday, because if something's gone sideways in the transaction, funds are coming in at the very last minute or whatnot, we might need to plan to close special. And that means that we're going to close not in the morning. We didn't go, their documents didn't go down the night before to the recorder. They actually might go down, be submitted that morning once we get funds in or whatnot. So we do get specials on Fridays or the last day of the month. So we make sure we get everything in. And just to add to that, I did put a sheet in here. It's not in that buyer and seller guide, but this page of who pays for what in a real estate transaction, especially if you're working with a client who's from another area, even from Northern California to Southern California, they want to understand who pays what in a real estate transaction, who customarily is responsible for what. And again, a lot of things on here, are negotiable, but this is very traditionally what happens in a Southern California closing. So I always have this PDF as well. I'll send this off to you. But it's good to know to kind of prepare your clients, especially again, if they're from out of the area. And actually, as a lot of you know, we have a lot of people moving in from out of the area. So I just think any questions that you guys have, please let us know.
I have a question.
Yes. Hi, Candace.
For home warranty, if our seller or buyer decides that they don't want it, is that okay, even though they've included it in their purchase agreement?
There is a section where you can mark, if you're the buyer's agent, you're filling out that they can waive it's on page 3. They can either elect that they want who to pay for it, or they can waive the home warranty.
But what happens if they don't they want to waive it and then they decide that they don't want it anymore?
Oh, that's fine. You just let us know. Yeah.
Okay. And is that something that we have to ask you to order?
Oops, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, is that something that we have to ask you to order, or do you automatically know to order it?
Okay, so the reports Escrow doesn't order.
Okay.
So especially the home warranty, because there's a lot of items that are particular to that house that we don't know about.
Air conditioning, pool.
Right. So we don't order a home warranty for you. Just you've marked that termite as part of the contract. We don't order that either. The only thing I can't order for you is the natural hazard disclosure report. If you go through Disclosure Source, I'd be happy to order that for you, because that's one of our companies and I can order that really simply. I can have it in 2 hours for you. So that's the only report I can order. And just to go back about termite, since we mentioned it, a lot of transactions I'm seeing, they are not putting termite in as part of the real estate transaction, because if you get a termite report, anything that I get, I'm going to show the lender. So I have to disclose anything that I have to the lender if they ask for it. So if termite's not part of the contract, then the lender won't ask for it. So if it is part, they want to see the notice completion. They want to see if there's section 1 or section 2 items. So you just have to be aware of anything that comes into escrow. I have to share to a lender if they ask for it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Or Leanne, anything that you would like to cover that we didn't cover today?
No, I know that like real estate is super busy right now for us. It's super busy for you guys. And just a reminder, and I feel like all the people on this call are just great agents, but just to really communicate, be kind, be patient, take time to, you know, just wait if you need to, but make sure that you know, treat our escrow officers and our title companies with a lot of respect and kindness, because we're all struggling at the moment with a lot of things that are going on. So that's all I would say.
And I so appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. And I just want to let you know that I'm here for you. Just if you have any questions at all, I'm here. I pride in answering my phone. So when my phone rings, it's really important for me to just pick up that phone and answer that question right then and there for you, because I know, like you said, everybody's busy. And if you can get an answer to your question right away, that way you can move forward. We can all move forward and feel good about it. And so I really, really just communication is so key. And I'm
Very
here
key.
to answer any question.
And you know, one more thing, Leanne, which you reminded me, and that is the time that we're in right now, which is, and understandably so, we have a lot of buyers and sellers who are definitely afraid to come out and to meet with their escrow officer and sign documents and whatnot. So I'm going to let Susan talk about some of the things we've been doing as precautionary moves for clients. But just so you know, Donna Maximura and myself were notaries. So in a lot of cases, I can't do an entire loan package, but we have been going to clients' homes and whatnot, and I actually have a little desk set up in the back of my car so they can kind of step in, sign their documents, and I notarize them right there. And also when you come to our office, weather permitting, luckily we're in Southern California, we have outside of our office, we have tables and umbrellas, so we can sit outside with a notary and sign documents out there. So people do not have to come into our office, and all of our notaries will be masked. If they prefer gloves, we have, of course, hand sanitizer, just like you do, and, you know, Lysol wipes and whatnot. So we feel like we've done a really good job of meeting some issues that people have of security, because we have to, you know, we have to all stay healthy. So
basically, if I'm calling a seller to sign a grant deed package or a buyer to sign a loan package, we kind of leave it up to them as how they'd like to do this. If they'd like a notary to come to their home, we're glad to send a notary. We have a group of 3 or 4 notaries that are very COVID safe. And we always ask the client, do you have an outside seating area or somewhere you'd like to sign? A lot of times the clients, they feel safer coming here. They don't want to know somebody going to their home. And so we're totally set up for either outside or a conference room where the notaries wear masks. So we just ask your client what their comfort level is as to signing their paperwork. So and anything we can get up front is best. That's why we send out the opening packages. So that way, when it comes down to signing a loan package or a grant deed, there's very few interactions. Of course, the loan package is still usually 50 to 70 pages, but we can get through that pretty quickly. So, yeah.
Fantastic.
let's see, okay, no, I think we had answered all the questions.
Okay.
So, again, just thank you all for taking the time to meet with us today. Leanne, thanks for inviting us in.
Thanks, Jennifer and Susan. Thank you.
Leanne. Thank you.
Okay.
And call Susan with any questions,
Yes,
or
I'm
your
here.
title officer or whatnot. All right, everybody have a great day.
Thanks,
Thank you.
guys. Bye.
Bye.